Hey friend, welcome back to the cabin, and today we're making good old-fashioned Southern buttermilk biscuits from scratch, beginner friendly. So today I'm making a little bit of a trimmed down version, a smaller version, but I'll have the recipe for the full-size batch in the description box below. Okay, so we're going to start with 1.5 cups of flour. Now the normal recipe calls for 2, but we're just trimming it down a little bit. And I kind of estimate my 1.5 cups. Okay, and then we'll take the rest of this for rolling the biscuits out. Okay, now here I have 3 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and just a tad bit more than 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Put that in there. And we want to incorporate, blend that well, distribute it really good through the flour. Okay, now here I have about a heaping tablespoon, probably closer to 2 tablespoons of lard. Now this lard, if you look at it, it might look a little bit different, but this is home rendered lard from our hogs, and I'll link to that video above if you're interested in watching how that's done. But this makes wonderful pastries and biscuits. And this is also what gives your biscuits that flakiness. And we're going to just cut it in, and it's pretty soft, so it cuts in really, really easy. And if you don't know what cutting in is, it's where you're taking, some people use a pastry blender, but we're actually mashing the lard and distributing it through the flour. So there's not chunks. I don't want chunks of it in here. I want it to be like rice grains, or I have seen people say, heard people say the size of peas, but I like the term rice grains because it does distribute it better through the flour. And what I'm doing is I'm actually taking and just pushing it up against the side of the bowl, like this. And you can see how it's gotten incorporated in pretty good. I'm going to do it just a little bit more. There's a few small lumps in there. But this gives these biscuits a wonderful flakiness, and that's why we want to distribute this lard through there really good. And by the way, I'm preheating my oven to 425, so it'll be good and hot by the time I get these biscuits made. So I have here some home cultured buttermilk, cultured from Lily's. Wonderful, sweet, creamy Jersey milk. When you use buttermilk in a biscuit recipe, it's very important that you make sure you have that baking soda in there. Now, this has been blended very well, our flour mixture. We've cut in our lard, but once we start adding the liquid, we're going to be very conservative with the mixing, because the more you mix, the tougher your biscuits will be. So I'll make a well kind of in the center. Let's turn it like this where you can see a little better. And I don't measure my buttermilk because I never know exactly how much it'll take. So I start pouring, and then I'm gonna just fold. I'm not gonna do aggressive stirring. I'm just gonna fold. And of course it's easy to see that it's gonna take more. And this buttermilk is so thick and creamy and has a wonderful tangy aroma. What we're looking for is to actually just get the dough wet enough that it starts to pull away from the sides of the bowl. And the buttermilk is thicker than just your traditional milk, so it may take a tad bit more than what you're used to. And like I said, I don't measure it because I never know exactly. Okay, so I'm going to fold. And it's going to take just a little bit more. But we're getting close to what I'm looking for. I think this is going to be just about perfect because you can see that it's kind of holding together. There's a little bit of loose flour in the bottom. We will incorporate that when we knead the dough. Okay, so see how it's pulled away. It pulls away very easy from the sides of the bowl. It's not really sticking, so that's what we're looking for. Okay, so I've got about 1/2 cup of flour distributed right here. Okay, and that little bit of loose flour in the bottom, I'm going to just pile it all on top. Now what we're going to do, you want to flour your hands really well. And I'm just going to roll it in the flour like that. And then I will fold it onto itself 10 times. That goes back to, you don't want to overhandle, because the more you handle it, the tougher it'll be. All right, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'll pick up some flour on the bottom, and then I will just kind of roll it into a ball, distribute my flour, and I'm not going to roll this out. I'm going to pat it out to about 3/4 of an inch thick. And the reason I don't roll it is because I just love the marks in the top of the dough. Need a little bit of flour on your hands. Now I've got some lard in my medium-sized cast iron skillet, and I've already melted it. So I'm going to step over there and get that, and we'll go to cutting the biscuits, and I'm going to show you a couple of other things that I do to really give you a crispy top and a crispy bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to take, and that skillet is pretty warm. I'm going to take my biscuit cutter and cut my biscuits. Now, you want to go straight down. You don't want to go into and twist. You want to go down. If you twist it, it will seal off the edges and they'll tend to not want to rise. Okay, so what I'm going to do is lay it upside down. Ooh, that one's a little bit sticky, didn't have enough flour. And then I'm going to flip them back over. So what we're doing is coating the tops with this good lard. That's going to give them a wonderful crispy top, and then they're going to be laying in lard as well. That's probably, in this medium-sized cast iron skillet, it is probably about 2 tablespoons of lard. So we're going to coat them like that. And you want to make sure that your biscuits are touching, because that's another key point to helping them to rise. If there's too much space between them, they'll tend to spread out instead of going up. Ooh, you can see. Actually, I didn't have quite enough flour over there in that section, so we're going to move some more over there. And now I'm going to do the same thing with this little bit of dough. I'm just going to fold it a couple of times onto itself, distribute my flour, push it out. We're just going to handle it just a minimal amount. So I'm going to push them babies up against herself like that. And then I think we're going to get one more and a piece of one. Yes, one of them will be one of the ugly biscuits that I talk about. That my son, when he was little, our youngest son, he used to think I made them especially for him. And then years later, he discovered it was just leftover dough. But he used to love the ugly biscuits. Now I've just kind of packed them in there like that. We're going to go put them in a 425-degree oven for about 15 to 20 minutes, just till they get a good, nice, crispy brown top. And I'll be back. Well, this pan of biscuits turned out really, really beautiful. I'm going to show you here the crust that we have on the bottom. You can see that they're light. You can also see a fine crust on top. This is the perfect Southern buttermilk biscuit. So I was very pleased with that, and we're about to have some fresh perked coffee and some fresh made scuppernong jelly. So I'm about to plate these up so me and my husband can have breakfast. But first, I'm going to be back with you in just a bit to share some beautiful words and a couple of tips and tricks. I think I forgot to tell you what kind of flour that I use, and you do not want to use a self-rising flour. You want to use an all-purpose flour because self-rising flour already has its leavening in it. Leavening is what causes the biscuits or whatever you're making to rise and be fluffy. So self-rising, of course, by the name, already comes with that in there. So you want to use a good all-purpose flour. Whole wheat pastry flour also works really well. The buttermilk is an acid, so when you have the baking soda in the flour mix, it causes the biscuits to be light and fluffy. But you have to go ahead, cut your biscuits and get them in the oven because that effect can be lost pretty quickly. You want your biscuits to touch, that way they don't spread out, they spread up, they rise. And also, there was another thing I wanted to tell you and it just slipped my mind. Oh, and when you cut your biscuits, cut straight down. Don't twist your cutter in any way because that will seal off the sides and also inhibit the rising. Once you add your liquid, handle your dough as little as possible. Those are all tips to help you have a great light fluffy biscuit and be successful when you're making your biscuits. But you know that I'm going to leave you with these beautiful words. Don't ever forget that your Heavenly Father loves you. And I'll see you on the next video. God bless.